In May 2025, an unexpected message echoed from the heart of West Africa. Burkina Faso's military government had arrested several European NGO workers, accused of espionage. The West called it paranoia. But inside Africa, many called it justice long overdue. What really happened inside the dusty streets of Ouagadougou? Who were these Europeans, aid workers or spies? And why has President Ibrahim Traoré become one of the most watched and feared leaders on the African continent? On a quiet Thursday morning, Burkina Faso's security forces stormed the offices of a European NGO operating under the banner of humanitarian development. Within hours, multiple foreign nationals were detained. Their crime, according to the government, spying for Western intelligence agencies. This wasn't a random act. For months, reports had surfaced of foreign-funded groups monitoring military movements, photographing restricted zones, and secretly communicating with opposition networks. To the Burkinabe government, this was not aid, it was infiltration. Western media immediately condemned the arrests. But inside Burkina Faso, the story hit differently. For many, it symbolized the beginning of African self-defense, not against terrorism, but against foreign control. To understand this moment, we must rewind to 2022. A young captain, Ibrahim Traoré, led a coup that changed the course of the nation. His promise, to reclaim Burkina Faso's dignity and resources from decades of exploitation. Under his leadership, the country pivoted sharply, away from France, away from the West, and toward new allies, Russia, China, and Iran. Traoré's message was simple. Africa must no longer kneel. But with defiance came danger. Sanctions, propaganda, covert operations. Every act of independence invited a counterstrike. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, three nations scarred by terrorism and betrayal, made a historic decision. They cut ties with ECOWAS and created their own bloc, the Alliance of Sahel States. Their vision, collective defense, shared economy, and liberation from the CFA franc, the colonial currency still tied to Paris. Niger went further, nationalizing a uranium mine once controlled by the French giant Orano. For the first time in decades, Africa was saying, "Our resources are not yours." But to the West, this alliance was more than rebellion. It was a threat to their global energy dominance. And so, every action by these governments began to be framed as extremism. The arrests of European NGO workers were not isolated, they were part of a larger shadow war. France had already withdrawn its troops from Mali and Burkina Faso after being expelled. In their place, new advisors arrived, Russian instructors, private contractors, and intelligence operatives. The battlefield had changed, from open combat to information warfare. Social media campaigns, fake news, covert funding, all became weapons. Human Rights Watch and other advocacy groups accused both sides of atrocities. But who funds these watchdogs? Who benefits from their narratives? These are questions the world rarely asks. In May 2025, Ibrahim Traoré stepped into the Grand Kremlin Palace. Cameras flashed. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. The young African leader, once dismissed as a radical, now stood shoulder to shoulder with one of the world's great powers. It was more than diplomacy. It was a declaration. Africa is open to new partnerships, on its own terms. The West watched in silence, anger mixed with disbelief. A region once dependent on aid now refused to obey. Were the NGO workers truly spies? Or was this a message to the world, that Burkina Faso would no longer tolerate manipulation disguised as charity? For the people, the answer mattered less than the symbolism. They saw their leader drawing a line in the sand. A line between sovereignty and submission. Across Africa, the message spread like wildfire. From Bamako to Niamey, from Conakry to Addis Ababa, citizens whispered the same words. If they can stand, so can we. Whether loved or hated, Ibrahim Traoré had reignited a fire that the world thought was long extinguished, the fire of African independence. The story of Burkina Faso is not the story of one nation's defiance, it is the story of a continent remembering who it is.